This presentation will introduce you to ComSim's KEEL technology as it applies to the development and execution of policies. KEEL stands for Knowledge Enhanced Electronic Logic. I want to start the discussion by describing what I mean by policy. Rules are created to define actions to specific situations. Rules respond to black and white issues. Policies attempt to describe how to think, how to address more complex issues. Policies are commonly prepared by humans for interpretation and execution by other humans. The development of policies is a subjective task. It demands the author understands and considers all of the direct and indirect consequences of the decisions and actions defined by the policy. Similarly, the executioner of the policy must not only understand the policy, that entity must also be able to interpret the situation relative to the policy. Both the producer and the consumer of policies exercise judgment to subjectively value all the aspects that drive the interpretation of the policies. Policies drive the distribution of resources and effectively describe the rules of engagement. They attempt to formalize a way to address soft issues that cannot be addressed by fixed rules. The reason we want to improve the policy development and interpretation process is to make the entire process more efficient, save money, and operate more effectively. I want to start by differentiating between a technology and a tool, and explain why KEEL technology might provide a way to improve policy management. A technology provides a way to solve a problem. With KEEL, we have created a new way to define and process information. More specifically, we are attempting to package human-like judgment and reasoning. Humans utilize judgment and reasoning when they perform tasks and interpret policies. It is the human's ability to interpret information and balance alternatives that provides value beyond just following a simple set of rules. Tools facilitate the implementation of a technology. For example, words facilitate the development of policies. Words are the tools of policymakers. With KEEL, we have software tools that allow you to capture and test the way that a policymaker interprets information, balances alternatives, and allocates resources. More specifically, we have a dynamic graphical language that allows you to show how information is linked and valued in a dynamic environment. We suggest that this type of graphical language maps closely to the way that the human's right brain interprets information and balances alternatives. The characteristics of the KEEL language allows you to see how information is interpreted and see how the system balances alternatives. The result is an unambiguous model that describes how decisions and actions should be executed. Policies documented in the KEEL language are explicit, making them easier to explain. Now I want to focus on what I mean by reasoning, a process that is required both to develop and execute policies. This slide shows the functionality of the two hemispheres of the human brain. With this segmentation, the left brain equates to the functionality commonly provided with conventional von Neumann digital computers. It processes rules. Language, numbers, rules are handled with if-then-else logic. Information is processed sequentially. The right brain has to do with the interpretation of information. This is what is required to execute policies. Judgment and reasoning have to do with the interpretation and integration of multiple pieces of information. In analog systems, like the human right brain, information is processed in parallel. A human is often challenged by allocating resources across conflicting goals. For example, spending money to address short-term problems rather than saving money for the future. These problems must be considered in parallel because they cannot be addressed in isolation. It is not acceptable to expend all resources for a short-term problem when the future will still have to be addressed. Now we want to focus on how KEEL technology provides support for reasoning and judgment. Using the KEEL toolkit, we define how information is to be valued in a dynamic environment. A policymaker can usually do this without requiring support from mathematicians or software engineers. The policymaker uses his or her experience to identify the decisions and actions that can be performed. These are the variables under the control of the policy. Then the policymaker identifies the pieces of information that drive the policy. These are the inputs to the policy. Finally, the policymaker defines the functional relationships between the data items using common drag-and-drop techniques. The result is a well-documented policy for interpreting information. The nature of the KEEL dynamic graphical language allows the policymaker to get immediate feedback on how the system responds. The KEEL engine is being automatically generated behind the scenes and is active as soon as data items are dropped on the display. The policymaker can simulate the inputs to the system and see how it responds. Changes can be made in seconds, not in hours or weeks or years. The designs are completely explainable and auditable because it is easy to see how the information is interpreted under any input scenario. In summary, to improve the process of development and execution of policies, organizations must provide a more explicit way to define, audit, and execute those policies. A means of describing how to interpret soft information must be provided that is unambiguous. Providing this level of service will enable policies to be re-examined and enhanced much more quickly than untraceable policies described with the English language. In the future, it will be necessary to automate the execution of policies just to keep up with the increased complexity and rapid change in social, political, and economic areas. Military organizations are already considering autonomous weapons that will have to execute policies defined by humans. Controlling these machines will demand that the policies are explicit to avoid major problems relative to inappropriate interpretation of the policies. KEEL Technology provides this service now. KEEL Technology is covered by a series of granted and pending U.S. patents. It is only available from ComSim. If you would like more information, there are numerous papers and demonstrations of KEEL Technology on ComSim's website, www.comsim.com.